Hey celebrity, it's your favorite doula Naya here to talk about what you should consider when choosing a birth doula, okay? So one of the factors that you want to consider is proximity, okay? And I am giving you these tips based off of my experience in choosing birth doulas. I am a certified birth doula and I'm also a certifying body. So my coworkers and the other celebrity doulas that I work with are ones that I train. So I choose who I train and who I work with according to these factors, okay? One of the factors is proximity. You want a birth doula that's going to be close enough to where you're having the baby and where you're going for your prenatal visits, okay? And also, I'm a celebrity doula. So if you are going to have your doula celebrating you at all, so that means coming to your baby shower, showing up at your gender reveal, if your doula is gonna be hosting any of your celebratory events, you want your doula to be close to that location. I gotta check the microphone. Okay. You want your doula to be close to that location because, of course, you want your doula to be prompt. You want your doula to be present. You don't want any barriers in her arriving at um, the location that you agreed, okay? Especially for birth. You want your doula to be prompt when it comes to birth. Of course, your doula is not going to be there for your first contraction. But if you're going to have your doula meet you at your house whenever you go in labor, then you want a doula that isn't going to be too far away. So if your doula is comfortable um, with disclosing how far away she'll be, like where she lives or where she works from, then that's a good way to consider who you're going to work with. Good example, the birth center that I had my last three children at was 45 minutes away from my house. I didn't have a doula, but had I had a doula, I would have needed my doula to meet me at my house or meet me at the birth center. I did most of my laboring at my house and then I went to the birth center. So my doula could possibly live 2 hours away from the birth center, but maybe only 40 minutes away from my house, if you do the math that way. So proximity is a big key factor in how you're going to choose your birthing support. You want to factor in what traffic is going to be like in the middle of the night if they're doing construction, you know, during your pregnancy on the highway. You want to factor in what your doula, if your doula drives or if your doula is going to take Uber or Lyft. You want to factor all of that in when it comes to determining the proximity that you want your doula to be away from you during her on-call times. Because I know with my clients, I go on call for my clients after they turn 36 weeks. I'm on call at all times. So I try to stay within 1 hour from where my client lives or where my client is going to give birth after she's 36 weeks. And all of that is going to be in your doula's contract. When she goes on call for you, where she'll be, all of that stuff is going to be disclosed. But at your initial meeting with your doula, you want to consider proximity. I had one client that was so excited to choose me as her doula. She didn't want to consider the fact that she lived all the way in New Jersey. She was willing to come to where I live to have her baby and everything. And I told her, I gave her my most sincere, honest judgment that I think the place where she was choosing to have her baby was too far for her to be worried about driving. In case there was traffic, she could easily be in that car in traffic for 1 to 2 hours. And I didn't feel comfortable with that. I told her that if she needed me to be her doula in the state where she lived, then I would go through the necessary paperwork and, registrations in order to serve her in her state. I told her I would do that for her because she was so dead set on having me for a doula. So again, if you are a doula and you see this, you want to consider your clients, that will be okay. You want to advertise everywhere, right? You want to network everywhere, right? You don't want to box yourself in too much. I get that. However, you definitely, if you are a doula, you definitely want to consider proximity when it comes to your travels to and from the locations that you have to meet with your client. Even the first initial meeting, the place where I am now is where I like to meet with my clients. I actually had a meeting with a new client today, so that's why I'm recording content here. But this is about 20 minutes from where I live, and about 20, maybe 30 minutes from the desired location for birth for this client. So that's why we chose to meet here. Upon meeting here, she was able to see how long it took for her to get here from her home, and she was able to see how long it took for her to get from here to her birth center. And without me disclosing where I live to her, because I'm working for myself now, without me disclosing where I live, she was able to get a good sense of proximity when it comes to the drive and everything. So that's just another factor that you want to consider. I'm trying to organize my thoughts because there's a lot that could go into that, depending on what exactly you want your doula to support you in concerning the pregnancy. Um, this client wants her baby shower to be down in Dover. Okay, so right now I am a good hour away from Dover. So, I have to charge her for that being so far away from the direction, like away from the proximal area that I like to work in. Okay, I'm sorry, I meant to say away from the geographic area that I like to work in. Um, I'm trying to remember that, people who will see this, everybody's not in my state. Everybody's might not be in the US. So let's say you're over in Australia. You still want to consider proximity for your doula. Um, you want to consider the traffic at all times of day because babies come whenever they feel like coming. Typically, we go in labor at night. Babies like to come at night, but you're going to go in labor whenever it's time to go in labor. So you want to know what the traffic is going to be like at 2 o'clock in the morning and at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, at 5 o'clock in the morning and at 5 p.m., rush hour. It might not be rush hour at 5 p.m. in Australia, whatever it is. You want to know what rush hour is going to look like. You want to know what parking is going to look like. And, you want to consider everything that your doula, everything that you're asking your doula to be able to adapt to in order to accommodate you through labor and delivery, okay? All right. Love you, celebrities.